Hello, everybody. This is Taco Movie Talks, and this is week 11. And I'm very excited to have all of you, as I am very excited to have my very special guest. It is my girlfriend. It is Big Chungus.
Hey guys.
Her name is Meg. Um, I know that you were really excited to come on here as I was, and we have two movies to talk about today, and that is Mandy and the Night of the Hunter. So you have a kind of you have your own taste in movies. What would you describe it as to any listeners to this?
I like a variety of modern movies like fantasy, rom-coms, and horror.
And getting to know you over the last few years, I can confidently say that you really love Harry Potter movies, and that's perhaps your favorite movies.
Definitely.
Which we will have a video coming out end of July, as that is a very special date within Harry Potter, where we're going to do all seven or eight movies. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, then I think you will be best friends with Megan, and be sure to leave a nice comment to her down below. And while you're at it, why don't you like and subscribe to the channel, as that would be very much appreciated. And again, I hope you're enjoying this video. We have two pretty interesting movies to talk about. And what were some of your overall thoughts on the movies we watched?
I honestly really like Mandy, and when you said it was in 2018, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was in the 80s or 90s they made that movie, which is just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it was really different. And then Night of the Hunter.
Yes.
It was a little slow. I didn't really prefer it, but if they if you like older movies, then I would definitely give it a watch.
Yeah. I think they're both classics in their own right. And one of the hardest things for me when I try to review stuff, I mean, first of all, I haven't watched all of the movies, right? And even my library of movies that I've seen, it might not be quite as deep as some people, but I think and everyone might be able to have or might have this same difficulty. But looking at it in mind of when it came out is it's difficult for me whenever I review them. So the scale, it honestly, it might be a little bit tipped out of favor of older movies, but I do try to remind myself, and especially with The Night of the Hunter, um, what other great movies came out at that time, and I do think it does stand among them, for probably different reasons than some do. But it was one that you can still find enjoyment with, even like 70 years later, which is just kind of wild
That is.
to think about. And Mandy for sure it has the feel of like an 80s movie. Like even the stuff they were wearing, it felt very, very 80s. And but it has like a newer feel to it.
Yeah.
That I quite liked. Um, so without further ado, let's jump into the first movie, and it is the one that you like the most. It is Mandy. It is by Panos Cosmatos, 2018, and just to kind of summarize the plot a little bit, um, we're introduced to a couple. It is Nicolas Cage is in a relationship with a girl who goes by Mandy in this film. And there's a lot of kind of like weird underbelly of this world that we are kind of brought into in this movie. But we're introduced to kind of like a drug cult that seems to be in the psychedelic and LSD mix. and they see Mandy, and the leader of the cult wants her to kind of be a part of their cult. He seems to be interested in her in one way or another. There is an amazing drug sequence with Mandy being drugged and the cult leader just kind of talking to her. And she kind of doesn't fall for his usual tricks, as probably most of the people in his cult did. And they burn her alive, which was definitely quite a scene. And then from there on, it is kind of the story of Nicolas Cage getting his revenge.
Yeah.
And did any of the violence kind of, was it ever too much for you?
I don't think so. They had a couple good like fighting scenes, like we talked about the chainsaw scene. It was a really good scene, like violence.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that scene, and when he was fighting those like alien type things.
Oh, yeah. So and that's a big part of this movie, and it's the kind of the character construction, how they actually looked. I thought was freaking awesome. It's like a biker gang, and they go a little bit into their backstory, where um, they got kind of like a crazy batch of LSD, and it turned them into the gang that we see in the movie. So they're a little bit like a little superhuman, but not like Superman type. But they're less impervious to pain as some are. Um, the world building that this movie is able to do, it to me it kind of it's a lot like a fantasy movie in that way, because we get introduced to that biker gang. Um, it, then we get backstory into to Nicolas Cage, and then the cult itself. It all feels kind of fantastical. It's a little bit outside of the realm of reality, and from that perspective, I really liked what they were able to do, and I would definitely be interested if they would ever kind of expand the universe and make another film that was loosely tied to this one.
I didn't even think of that, but like, yeah, I would definitely watch that.
And I think the director is really good. Um, I kind of like how vibrant and colorful this was. Um, Again, it kind of goes back to like an 80s feel. It almost kind of felt like you were like almost like in a discotheque a little bit, or like bright neon lights. Um, and it felt very trippy.
I'm pretty sure I told you this, but when he was like they gave Mandy the drugs, I thought I was like tripping for a second. It was the movie, like it was how both faces were like they're switching between faces, like morphing them together. I was like, it was just so crazy.
Yeah, that was probably one of like the most powerful scenes, is when it felt like his face was turning into Mandy's face.
Yes.
It was really neat, and it kind of um, it put you into the headspace probably of what Mandy was going through, and it also kind of gives you an idea of maybe how some of the people in the cult were brought into the cult, which it makes you a little bit, and maybe just for one of the characters in particular, makes you kind of sympathize with them, because it's like I can start to see how maybe they were drawn into something this bad.
Well, to that point, how Nicolas Cage's character like felt sympathy for one of those girls. Do you remember? Like you could
Yes,
tell like when they were killing Mandy, like she was a little like apprehensive and like didn't really want to, and he like spared her life.
exactly. Yeah, they were really, really good and effective in doing that, because it kind of gave you. It wasn't like a close up, but it was just the profile of I think everyone in the cult, and you could kind of see how they were reacting to it. And she was the only one who seemed to not really enjoy what was going on there, and almost a sense as though she was like kind of got brought in the same way Mandy did, and kind of realized like, crap, this could have been me if things didn't go the way that they did when I was brought in. Um, from a character perspective, like I think Nicolas Cage did really good. He was like off the wall Nicolas Cage, and his screaming was amazing. And some of his faces, he looked like an absolute madman at times. And I thought the leader of the cult was probably the star of the show as far as I'm concerned, with as far as his performance went.
He did a really good job like portraying the guy, like the leader of the cult. So I had like
Mhm.
no complaints with like his performance.
Yeah, I think he definitely got a lot of time to shine because he had like monologues and times where he could really, talk and give a full throated performance of sorts. Definitely a director I'm going to check out more. I like this movie a lot. I gave this one 4.5 stars out of 5. I would definitely recommend it, and I think it's a movie that maybe in the future upon a rewatch I might bump up to a 5. I really really like this movie, and obviously a lot of people I think hold this in pretty high acclaim. So, but if you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it.
Same here. It was a really good movie.
Do you want to give it a ranking out of 10 or 5?
I gave it 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5, solid score for the Megster. So let's move it along. We kind of got a little bit of our thoughts about this, but Night of the Hunter by Charles Lawton, 1955. So uh, what is that? 67 years ago at this point. So this is a movie. It starts out a man. I think it starts out with the hunter or the antagonist, and we get a little bit of him, and he kind of seems very religious based. Kind of doesn't. It seems like sexually he does not like women whatsoever.
He doesn't like widows.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. But even he's like at a burlesque show, and I don't know if you noticed this. He has his pocket knife on him at all times. While he was watching that, like he flipped the blade, and it seemed like it made him angry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking like he killed those widows. Like it said, like this is like the 12th widow. Like so, I thought it was just widows, but you're probably right. It's like all women.
Mhm. Um, so we kind of cut to a father is coming back to his house. He had just stolen $10,000, and he killed a couple people while getting these illicit funds. He hides them so that only his son and daughter know where the money is. And it leads us kind of on a journey where the hunter of sorts is looking to con, for lack of a better term, this family out of the funds because he learned by being a roommate of the father in prison that he had the money hidden at his house. And then it's pretty much a cat and mouse chase from there on out, where the hunter is trying to go after these children. And his last name is Mr. Powell. I couldn't remember his name originally. Mr. Powell is the antagonist throughout this. My first thoughts are that Mr. Powell is one of the more intriguing bad guys in film.
Yeah, I would have to agree. He was. It was like a different. Like he
Mm,
was like a different kind of like character, like performance, if that makes sense.
yeah. It felt like we got a good feel for him. And I also think that for the time period, and I could be wrong on this, but it definitely felt like they invested more time into the bad guy as what mainstream generally did at that time.
Yeah, because the movie was basically about him and the boy. Like, I
Mhm.
think they were like, it was like 50-50, like 60-40, and like who got more screen time.
Yeah. And so like thematically, and I, I'd want to hear if this is something that you think has any relevance to it, or if you think there's any truth to it. But religion is a huge thing throughout this whole movie, and it's kind of she's it's almost like a boarding house for orphans. I don't know what you would want to call it exactly. It's what do they call it when people,
Foster.
almost like a foster home, like back during the Depression, which is when the time period this is set, which is not like official in any way. She's just kind of doing it out of the kindness of her heart. We have her, and she really is kind of like on the other side of the spectrum of what Mr. Powell is, and they're both very religious. They talk a lot about scripture, but I think one of the main points that was trying to be made through this film is that it's kind of like actions speak louder than words, especially from a religious perspective. Because, the hunter would always talk as though he was a pastor, and he was able to get people kind of hooked on his every word, whereas she would tell it in a way almost to empower the people around her, not kind of make them scared so much, and encourage them to do the right thing by also doing the right thing.
Yeah, I would agree. Because I don't know if you remember the scene where Mr. Powell and the boy and girl's mom, was it John and what was that girl's name?
Keep going, I'll look
Okay,
it up.
he like how she was like, he bought me the clothes to buy me makeup and stuff, and like they were like preaching. Do you remember that scene?
I think so, yeah.
Like they had like the fire around them and people were like yelling. It was basically like a mob.
Okay.
And I don't know, like that was just like one of the scenes where I'm like, he's using like his voice for like to fit his narrative.
So it was John and Pearl
John and Pearl.
were the
Okay.
two. Yeah, he was kind of a grade A manipulator
Yeah.
of sorts. Whereas the foster care mother really didn't seem manipulative whatsoever. And what I thought was kind of a neat little point they made? As John and Pearl, they fled their home to try to get away from Mr. Powell. And when we're kind of introduced to the foster mother, she seems a little rough with them.
With the whip.
Yeah, she got a switch out, and she threatened them. But even while she was doing that, and I don't know whether it was kind of foreshadow, or if we could kind of already see the direction things were going, it felt like it kind of came from a place of good as opposed to bad.
Yeah, because he's like, please don't hurt her. She's like, hurt you, I'm gonna like bathe you.
Exactly.
So I was like, okay, so she seems like a motherly sort of like nice person for the kids.
Yes. And so I think hitting on that, um, going really into the villain of the film, and then also the antagonist being a serial killer of women. It's kind of groundbreaking in a way for its time, and I kind of admire that. I truly think, and even though you might think my rating doesn't quite reflect the statements I'm making now, but it's very much a launching ground for a lot of movies that do really go into the villain in the future. Um, like some movies that I really like that probably couldn't have ever been done had a movie never set the mold for it, like No Country for Old Men. I think even maybe Zodiac a little bit, but movies like that where the crime element is kind of shown in full force throughout it. Um, I'm trying to think. Did you get kind of upset with some of the characters during this movie?
I got upset with the mom. She really made me mad. Like, it was just like, because, like, I don't know if it was, like, in the day, like, if your husband dies, you marry really quickly, but, like, it kind of was like she moved on really fast, like, get a dad.
Mm,
And then she was listening to Mr. Powell instead of her kids. And I was
yeah.
like, if you're, like, you should listen to your kids, like, instead of calling him a liar every time he, like, talks to you about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I could not agree with you more on those points. Like, and yeah, I don't know whether it's kind of indicative of the time to have that, but also it was. I think her name was Willa. She was Mrs. Spoon. I don't know if it was the mom's mom or
I think it was just a lady in town.
I think you're right. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, she felt like she took a motherly role to the mom though,
Yes.
and she was just like smitten over Mr. Powell, and she fell hook, line, and sinker for all of his kind of lies and manipulations. So both the women, I was like, I mean, because we know as that we know way more in the audience than they do. And I wonder if it's kind of like a cautionary tale for lack of a better term, that it's like, don't be so quick to fall for people.
Yeah. But Mr. Spoon was like very like apprehensive at first of Mr. Powell, and he just like kept like he's like, I don't know if he's like something's off about him.
Yeah. Um, you know, just I think it probably was a wrinkle that had to be there, where it's like there's varying takes on this person, so that definitely, I think it probably added to it a good deal. Um, my rating for this movie, I gave this one 3.5 stars out of 5, aka a 7 out of 10. Um, as far as like if you like deep dives into cinema, I think you'll really like it. If you like more modern cinema, it might, as Megan said, it might be a little bit slow. I definitely felt that as well, because it's an hour and a half, and it does definitely feel a bit longer than that. But the shots in this film, I completely forgot to mention this, but I think cinematography wise, some of the shots done were really, really great. So if you like cinematography, if you're really into movies and film, this is a great one to check out. And I think probably a lot of the benefit of the doubt should have been given, and this might be more accurately rated as a 4 in my mind when taking that into consideration. But for right now, I'm going to stick with a 7, and maybe if and when I rewatch this, it'll be solidified as a 4 or an 8 out of 10. Megan, what would you give this?
I would either give it a 2.5 or 3.
I can kind of see that from your perspective, and it really comes down to what you like in cinema more, um, because I honestly, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to fully invest in it, and it would probably be like too slow.
It was really slow for me, yes.
Yeah. Um, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with?
I don't think so.
Well, I have to say, Meg, you did great. You had a great debut. You really knocked it out of the park, and I can't thank you enough for joining. And you will join us for again?
Yes.
Absolutely. Again, the Harry Potter series. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be a whole week of Harry Potter movies. I've seen them once before. And Megan, how many times have you seen them?
At least 10.
And you've also read all the books too.
Yes.
So she is the local expert on Harry Potter. So if you're a fan, you're going to absolutely love our video on that. I can guarantee you of that. And if you liked this video, be sure to like it and also subscribe to the channel because we come out with videos every single week, multiple videos. And I want you all to know I appreciate you checking this one out. And be sure to check out my letterbox as well because you will get previews on the reviews coming through the channel. Very much appreciated, everyone. And I will catch you on the flippity flip. Bye, y'all.
Bye.